Okay, but do you understand what it means when someone says that's a social construct? Because I feel like the only reason anybody should still be ignoring the reality that gender is a social construct is because you just don't understand what that means. And so it just doesn't change your opinion. And that's exactly what dismissing this reality is, your opinion. And it's one that's profoundly ignorant of basically all of the words that are used in it. So here's social constructs. To start with, you can think of social constructs as anything that, in order to be true, requires at least two socially evolved brains to exist. Put simply, why at least two? Why not just one? A single mind agreeing that a thing exists is a personal construct, an imaginary friend, a hallucination, a delusion. When you have two or more brains cooperating and working together, you necessarily have a social construct, a pair, a duo, a team. And whatever thing those two brains agree on, however they do it, is also a social construct, like money, borders and laws, and everybody's favorite, gender. There are other types too. For example, there are mathematical or logical constructs, which are abstract systems that humans build to model or describe reality. For example, negative and imaginary numbers, Euclidean geometry, formal rules of logic. Literary or artistic constructs are worlds or characters or tropes that are created through creative work. For example, Middle Earth or Sherlock Holmes or dystopian future sci fi films slowly unfolding into reality right in front of our faces. Of course, there are many, many more, but you get the idea. Most of the things that we interact with every day and the ways in which we interact with them were constructed through a mutual agreement among a majority of the group members. The group, by the way, is another social construct. Now, that's not to say that the individuals that form the group are social constructs. The individuals exist. But ultimately, until a nervous system exists to receive sensory input from them, interpret that input, assign meaning, and then categorize those meanings, it's just a fuckload of individuals. Without socially evolved brains to recognize these concepts, even physical representations of our constructs are meaningless. Social constructs are social constructs for sake. So, what do I mean by a socially evolved brain? This is a brain that has been shaped by selection pressures over multiple thousands of generations towards cooperation, communication, and group living. All social animals have such brains. And for all the nerds that are already in the comments while I'm still recording this, I understand that there are social insects and that insects don't have brains. Don't at me. These behaviors are what defines a social animal. The ones that don't typically cooperate with other animals or have complex communication skills or live in groups aren't social. Being a social animal isn't just about like having friends or mating for life. It's about group survival. It's just easier to survive that way. When we live, work, and fight predators together, we have a greater chance of being successful. But a social construct is different from just cooperating or agreeing. Cooperative hunting, group childcare, collective defense. It's not necessary for a social animal to be excellent or even competent at all of those skills in order to survive. We're allowed to have some weaknesses because our strengths account for others' weaknesses, and vice versa. These are social systems, behaviors that can exist in non human animals without a shared understanding of meaning, purpose, or goal because they built a system that works that way. If they didn't have their minds or their minds were different, the system would be different. In order for those behaviors to evolve, there must be brains that evolve to perform them. But as soon as independent brains have enough interpretive power and enough shared context to agree on a shared system with a shared meaning and a shared goal, you get social constructs. So, what am I saying? Nothing is real? No. Gender's real, money's real, species are real. But without them, nothing bad happens. They're not immutable. They're not concrete. And all you have to do to change it is just be like, nah. So say nah.